There are urges inside you that you've never dared to name, not out loud. They throb in silence, in the late hours, in the scrolls, in the glances, in the hidden shame. It's not just lust, it's hunger, an ancient, aggressive, creative force that rattles the cage of your discipline and haunts the edges of your mind. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for the right moment. It comes like fire, sometimes slow, sometimes furious, and leaves you emptied, guilty, or worse, numb. You try to fight it, but the more you fight, the more it shifts forms. Desire becomes distraction, craving becomes compulsion. You lose time, you lose clarity, and eventually, you lose yourself. Behind every tab left open at night, behind every routine surrender, there's a man silently wondering, why can't I control this? He isn't weak. He's misdirected. He hasn't learned that the battle is not against the desire, but against the mind's habit of fleeing from it or collapsing into it. And this habit, this cycle of pursuit and emptiness, is not just psychological. It's chemical, neurological, and deeply unconscious. In this video, we're going to unpack that cycle through the lens of two brilliant minds: Freud, who saw desire as the core of the psyche, and Napoleon Hill, who believed that sexual energy, when directed, was the source of genius and success. Between these two visions, you'll find not just understanding, but a path. Because sexual energy is not a flaw in the system, it is the system. It's the rawest form of life force, powerful enough to create another human being, devastating enough to destroy your focus, intoxicating enough to make you believe a few minutes of pleasure are worth a lifetime of drift. But here's the truth few ever confront: what you don't transmute will consume you. The choice is not abstinence or indulgence, it's purpose or decay. You are not meant to suppress your instincts, nor are you meant to drown in them. You are meant to lead them, shape them, give them form. Without that, you will keep mistaking escapism for freedom and dopamine for happiness. The modern world doesn't help. Everything is designed to weaponize your instincts against you. Pixels, ads, algorithms, trends, all tapping into the same primal center of your brain that once ensured your survival. Now, it ensures your stagnation. You feel it every time you scroll instead of act, fantasize instead of build, crave instead of channel. And the more you give in, the more that energy loses its heat. What once could have forged steel becomes smoke. The man who doesn't learn to direct his fire becomes smoke himself, scattered, shapeless, forgotten. But the man who does, he becomes something rare, someone remembered. So here's the moment of friction, the edge between collapse and control, between another day wasted and a new identity formed. What you'll learn in this video isn't a trick, it's not a shortcut. It's the deepest shift a man can undergo, from being led by his instincts to leading with them. We're going to explore how minds like Napoleon Hill and Sigmund Freud decoded this fire. We'll see how great men used it, not ran from it. And more importantly, you'll learn how to take this same energy, the one that quietly governs your thoughts, and turn it into something unforgettable. Because if you don't, it will turn you into someone unrecognizable. If you've ever felt that something inside you is sabotaging your own potential, this is not your imagination. There is a war happening within, a quiet, relentless tension between your deepest impulses and your highest self. Most people live and die without ever understanding that war. But if you're here watching this, it means part of you is ready to stop losing energy to screens, to craving, to guilt, ready to take back control of your mind, not by force, but by understanding. Because the moment you understand the language of your instincts, you no longer fear them. You begin to speak through them. You begin to lead. Freud spent his life studying these invisible forces, the unconscious drives that pull us without consent. Hill spent decades observing the patterns of men who turned those same drives into legacies. One saw the roots, the shadow, the other saw the fruit, the greatness. And both agreed on one thing: sexual energy is not just about reproduction, it's about creation. It's your engine. If you learn how to master it, your focus deepens, your ambition sharpens, your clarity becomes unshakable. That energy doesn't disappear, it evolves. And what begins as temptation can transform into obsession with growth, with vision, with something far beyond momentary pleasure. This video is your map, a blueprint to help you redirect what you've been wasting. We'll look into the mechanics of the mind, the nature of libido, the process of sublimation, and the reality of modern distractions that are numbing a generation of men into passivity. This isn't about shame, it's about power. Not power over others, power over your own mind. Because the man who masters his internal energy becomes dangerous in the best possible way. He becomes sovereign. He no longer waits to be told what to do with his life. He builds it from the fire inside. So here's where you start. In the comments, write one word, focus, not for me and for you. Because writing a word is the first act of direction. It takes the vague cloud of intention and makes it physical. That's manifestation in its rawest form. Action. The man who writes is already leading his energy somewhere. Let that word be your anchor. Focus. A small spark, but the beginning of a new direction. And now, let's go deeper. Let's look at how Napoleon Hill uncovered the psychological mechanism that turns desire into greatness. Because once you understand what drives the most disciplined men in history, you'll stop settling for distraction and start crafting your own legacy. Napoleon Hill didn't stumble upon success. He decoded it. Over 25 years, he studied 500 of the most accomplished men in the world, inventors, presidents, military leaders, moguls. He wanted to know what they had in common, not just in action, but in mind. And what he found shocked even him. Beyond discipline, knowledge, and belief, there was one principle that stood like a secret door, the transmutation of sexual energy. He called it the most powerful of all human desires. Not because of what it leads to in the bedroom, but because of what it unlocks in the brain. Hill observed that the same intensity that drives a man toward sex can be redirected to drive him toward legacy. But this redirection isn't natural. It must be chosen, practiced, trained. And those who did, the few who didn't let lust pull them into waste, but instead lifted it into purpose, became unstoppable. Their minds operated on a different frequency. They weren't saints, they were focused. And their desire wasn't gone. It was weaponized, used to fuel long hours, bold risks, creative explosions. They weren't driven by impulse, but by mission. He gave examples. Napoleon Bonaparte, whose obsessive energy drove him to build empires. Edison, who worked through the night with unshakable fixation. Washington, whose discipline and restraint became legend. These men were not without lust. They had more of it than most, but they refused to let it master them. Instead, they used it to create. That's the pattern. High sexual energy doesn't weaken a man, a lack of direction does. And in that distinction lies the entire difference between greatness and regret. Hill wasn't moralizing. He wasn't saying sex is wrong. He was saying it's sacred because it's fuel. And fuel is dangerous when spilled, but powerful when directed. The man who learns to redirect that energy no longer needs constant motivation. His body becomes an engine. His brain becomes sharper. He doesn't chase pleasure. He creates meaning. And meaning lasts far beyond release. That is the key difference between lust and legacy. One fades, the other echoes. And this is where the shift begins. If you've ever wondered why some men seem to move through life with unstoppable momentum, this is it. They're not superhuman. They're simply using what everyone has, differently. The same flame that burns you up at night could light the path to your future. But only if you choose to rise above impulse and build something worthy of your energy. So let's go deeper, into the unconscious mind, and uncover how Freud explained this transformation at its psychological core. Sigmund Freud wasn't trying to inspire greatness. He was trying to explain chaos. He didn't write to motivate, he wrote to expose. And what he exposed was this. Beneath our actions, our thoughts, our decisions, lies a hidden network of drives, unconscious, relentless, primal. Chief among them is the libido. Not just sexual in the narrow sense, but life energy itself. Freud saw libido as the fuel of all motivation, all ambition, all creativity. And yet, because society cannot function on raw impulse alone, we are taught to repress it, to bury it. But repressed energy does not vanish. It festers. Freud warned that what we suppress returns in disguise. You think you've buried the urge, but it becomes anxiety. You think you've outgrown lust, but it morphs into compulsion, fantasy, or emotional paralysis. The unconscious mind is not a void, it's a reservoir. And every time you push desire down without processing it, you increase the pressure until it leaks out. In addiction, in sabotage, in restlessness that no success can satisfy. This is not weakness, it's physics. Energy denied seeks release. And the longer you pretend it's not there, the more it governs you from the shadows. But Freud didn't stop at diagnosis. He offered a transformation. He called it sublimation, the redirection of primitive energy into higher forms. Unlike suppression, which hides desire, sublimation acknowledges it and then elevates it. A man filled with aggression might train as an athlete. A person consumed by control may become a surgeon, a leader, a strategist. Someone drowning in erotic imagination may turn it into art, poetry, architecture. Sublimation isn't denial. It's transmutation, a conscious rerouting of instinct into impact. Freud saw it not as a trick, but as the foundation of civilization itself. This is why he believed geniuses weren't those without chaos, but those who mastered its flow. Michelangelo, sculpting obsession into beauty. Beethoven, transforming isolation into sound. Freud himself, consumed with inner conflict, gave birth to the science of the mind. None of them were free from turmoil, but all of them forged it into contribution. That is the true meaning of sublimation, turning psychological heat into mental steel. Without this, we remain at the mercy of urges we pretend to have tamed. And so, the question becomes not, how do I stop feeling this, but where can I take this? Your desire doesn't need to be silenced, it needs a channel. If you leave it unclaimed, it will erupt. But if you shape it, guide it, give it form, it becomes power. Real power, the kind that builds, not breaks. Sublimation isn't some abstract psychological trick. It's a muscle, a mental discipline that grows with repetition. The first step is awareness, not moral judgment, but observation. When the urge comes, don't react, don't numb it, don't run from it. Watch it, feel it fully without acting on it. This moment, the space between impulse and action, is where transformation begins. You're not trying to erase the fire, you're learning to hold it, contain it, study it. Because the man who can hold his desire without flinching becomes stronger than the man who constantly acts on it. Next comes direction. If you don't give your energy a place to go, it will find one anyway, and it will likely be destructive. But if you decide in advance where it should go, into training, writing, building, solving, creating, it begins to obey. Not instantly, not perfectly, but gradually. You start to rewrite the nervous system. Desire fires, but now it leads somewhere. The body wants to release. The mind says, not yet, to build first. This is the beginning of personal sovereignty, not cold self-control, conscious redirection. It's in these small acts that a new identity is forged. 30 minutes of focused work instead of scrolling. A cold shower instead of escape. Writing out an idea when your brain wants stimulation. These aren't heroic acts. They're acts of reprogramming. Each one tells your unconscious, I am the one who decides where this energy goes. And slowly the inner chemistry shifts. Dopamine begins to associate with growth instead of gratification. Lust doesn't disappear. It transforms into drive. You don't become less human. You become more integrated. Right now, I want you to participate in that shift. In the comments, write this phrase, I lead my energy, just that. Because to write it is to claim it. The moment you form the words, you declare authority over what once ruled you in silence. This isn't superstition, it's neurological. Writing activates intent, language shapes thought, and a written phrase, especially one repeated, becomes a command to the mind. So speak it through your fingers. I lead my energy. Let that be your signal, to yourself, to the pattern, to the future you're stepping into. And still for many the signal goes unheard, not because they lack will, but because they've spent years letting instinct choose for them. When there is no redirection, there is erosion, subtle, silent, slow. In the next breath we'll enter that landscape, the one where desire, unclaimed and unled, becomes not fire, but fog. You don't notice it at first. It starts in the little things. The delay in action, the shrinking attention span, the vague feeling that something's off. You chalk it up to stress, to being tired, to just one of those days. But it's not just one day. It's a pattern, a slow leak in the system. Because when desire is not channeled, it doesn't disappear, it disperses. It breaks into fragments, slipping into habits, cravings, clicks, distractions. And little by little your mind, once sharp, begins to blur. What we call modern life has become a factory of misdirection. Dopamine loops hijack attention. Pornography offers endless novelty without intimacy. Social media imitates validation without connection. And the brain, overwhelmed and underled, starts to lose its capacity to focus. The same energy that could build an empire is now spent scrolling through pixels. You're not choosing this, your biology is. Because without conscious guidance, your nervous system defaults to comfort, and comfort, unchecked, becomes a cage. Freud warned that repressed desire doesn't stay buried. It leaks out, often in twisted, compulsive forms. You find yourself restless at night, unable to sit still. You chase stimulation but feel numb. You wake up heavy without knowing why. The libido, once a creative force, has turned against you, not out of malice but neglect. You've given it no mission, so it loops. Loops of thought, of craving, of guilt. And slowly, you begin to forget who you were before the drift began. Hill saw the same decay. He called it aimlessness, a life ruled by untrained impulse. He saw it not just as laziness, but as tragedy. Men with potential, intelligence, energy, wasting it on momentary gratification, confused why success eludes them. The problem isn't lack of talent, it's misalignment. When your energy has no container, it spills into everything, half-finished projects, shallow relationships, goals abandoned halfway. And every unfinished thing whispers, you're not in control. But even here, in this fog, there is a door. Because if the erosion happens silently, so does the awakening. A single act of awareness can disrupt the loop. A single decision can begin to reverse the current. The same mind that spirals can be trained to rise, and in the next block we begin that rise with the daily disciplines that quietly rewire your brain for clarity, strength, and legacy. Something strange happens when you stop wasting your energy. At first it's subtle, sharper thoughts, longer focus, fewer distractions, but then it deepens. Your body feels charged, not agitated. Your voice carries weight, even when quiet. You start walking differently, not faster but firmer. You don't need to prove anything. People feel it, the shift. Because when a man holds his energy, the world senses it. It's not aggression, it's presence. A calm intensity that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't break. That presence is the echo of sublimation at work. You begin to see through the noise. What once pulled you, the flashes, the clicks, the instant hits of pleasure, starts to look dull. Not because you've become numb, but because you've become full. Your brain, no longer starved by distraction, returns to its natural state. Strategic, creative, resilient. You make connections faster. You remember what matters. You listen deeper. This isn't just productivity, it's sovereignty. And it's addictive in the best way, because it feels like coming home to your real mind. People will ask what changed. You won't always have an answer, because the change isn't loud. It's not a new job, a new habit, a new app. It's the quiet rewiring of how you relate to your own hunger. You no longer escape it. You partner with it. And this alliance between your conscious will and your unconscious fire becomes a force no obstacle can resist. You don't need to dominate rooms. You walk into them differently, And that difference commands respect without needing to demand it. But this power only grows if you protect it. Accumulated energy is pressure. Without purpose, it turns inward into anxiety or ego. But with direction, it turns into charisma, clarity, and conviction. This is why discipline isn't just about abstinence, it's about containment. You are no longer leaking energy into things that don't deserve you. You are becoming a vessel, solid, focused, efficient. And the longer you sustain that alignment, the more powerful the current becomes. And that current, it's what history is made of. Every man who shaped the world carried it. Not perfection, pressure, controlled, guided, accumulated. In the next block, we'll walk beside them, the men who took that inner chaos and molded it into memory, into empire, into art. You've felt the cost of wasting energy. Now, you'll see what happens when it's fully directed. Greatness rarely comes from peace. It comes from tension, internal, burning, relentless. And those who shaped history were not exempt from it. They were consumed by the same instincts, the same cravings, the same hunger you feel. The difference? They forged it. Michelangelo spent 4 years lying on his back, painting the Sistine Chapel, channeling erotic intensity into divine expression. Beethoven, deaf and isolated, turned emotional chaos into sound that still shakes souls centuries later. These men were not suppressing desire, they were sculpting it into something permanent. Nikola Tesla lived in near-complete celibacy, not out of shame, but because he understood his mind worked best unclouded by indulgence. His inventions shaped the modern world, not despite his abstention, but because of it. Freud himself, a man obsessed with the unconscious, turned his own neuroses into breakthroughs that changed how humanity sees itself. These weren't saints, they were alchemists, masters of internal friction. They didn't escape their fire, they domesticated it, and in doing so, they became the architects of civilization. This isn't about becoming like them. It's about recognizing that the same force that moved them lives in you, not in theory, in your breath, in your bones. That feeling of tension when you want to give in, when your body screams for release, when your mind just wants to scroll, escape, numb, that is the same raw energy they felt. The question is not whether you have enough of it. You do. The only question is, will you spend it or shape it? There is no blueprint for genius, but there is a pattern. Those who create, who endure, who rise, they all share one trait. They chose to suffer with intention rather than indulge without meaning. That suffering, that friction became a forge, and from it clarity emerged, power emerged, vision emerged. If you're waiting to feel ready before you start, you'll wait forever. The edge doesn't disappear. You just learn to walk it without flinching. And the moment you do, the moment you commit to carrying your tension like fuel, something shifts. Not outside, but within. You stop feeling like a man chasing greatness and start feeling like one becoming it. The fog lifts, the fire focuses, and you begin to sense what they must have sensed. This isn't just about achievement. It's about becoming someone whose presence is felt long after he's gone. And in the next breath, we'll take you closer to that man by entering the internal turning point where identity breaks and rebirth begins. There's a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when a man realizes he can't keep living the same way. It doesn't come with lightning or applause. It comes in the silence after temptation, in the weight of another distraction, followed by the question, what am I really doing with my life? That moment isn't weakness. It's awakening. And if you felt it, you're already changing. Because once the veil lifts, once you see how much power you've given away, you can't unsee it. You can only choose, stay sedated, or step into the unknown and take it back. This is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming precise. Precise with your energy, with your time, with your intention. You don't need to move mountains. You just need to move differently. When desire rises, stop asking how to get rid of it. Ask what it's calling you to create. Every craving is a signal, not of weakness, but of direction. The body speaks in tension. The mind speaks in pattern. When you unify them under purpose, the confusion begins to fade. But purpose isn't found in a single epiphany. It's found in repetition, in choosing again and again to resist the noise and return to what matters. The man you want to become isn't built in grand gestures. He's built in the tiny, invisible victories. The morning you get up when you didn't want to. The urge you hold without escape. The day you stay focused for just an hour longer. That's where it starts. Not with fireworks, but with friction. And maybe that's the most important shift of all, learning to see friction not as failure, but as formation. Every time you feel the pull toward pleasure, every time your mind says, just this once, you are standing at a doorway. One path is familiar. It leads to the man you've always been. The other is harder, but it leads somewhere you've never gone. That's where transformation lives, not in the absence of desire, but in the mastery of it. You don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to announce it. But deep down, you already know. The man who waits to feel ready never begins. The man who builds while still burning becomes someone the world doesn't forget. And in the final breath of this video, we'll close the loop. Not with answers, but with a return to the fire. And the question that still stands, will you lead it, or will it lead you? You are not weak because you feel desire. You are not broken because you failed to control it. You are human, and within that humanity lies a force so ancient, so wild, it once ensured the survival of our entire species. That force still lives in you, but now it asks for something more. Not just instinct, not just reaction. It asks to be led. Because the man who leads his desire does not lose it, he refines it, he sharpens it. And in doing so, he sharpens himself. The world does not need more men numbed by comfort. It needs men lit from within, not by chaos, but by clarity. That clarity doesn't come from suppressing what you feel. It comes from looking it in the eye and choosing to use it. Sexual energy isn't the enemy. It's the invitation to build, to lead, to focus, to endure. And the more you answer that call, not perfectly but consistently, the more you become someone even your past self would admire. Not because you never fall, but because you rise with direction. Every urge is an offering, every distraction is a doorway, and every act of redirection, no matter how small, is you taking back the narrative of your mind. Most will keep choosing the easy path. Most will keep trading legacy for relief. But not you, not now. You've seen too much. You've felt the cost, and more importantly, you've sensed what's possible. The fire hasn't gone away, it's only begun to focus, so don't stop here. There's more waiting for you, more about how the mind works, how the unconscious pulls your decisions, how to take full authorship of your emotional and mental patterns. Click on the video that's now on your screen. Keep going. Let this be the moment you stop consuming and start creating, with everything inside you. And if no one told you this lately, you're not meant to live scattered, you're meant to live sharpened. Come see how deep the mind can go. Come explore the next layer of your psyche.